Hey everyone, welcome to Python4Lib, where it's just kind of a group of folks who talk about Python and its application in the gallery, library, archives, and museum space. We generally talk about, tips, tricks, and how to learn about Python. And occasionally we have some kind of specialists or interested people talk about one aspect of how to use Python in this sort of the sort of work that we do. Today we have Corey Schmidt, who is with the Smithsonian as an IT specialist, I believe. And he is going to present on PyCharm. This is an IDE that kind of specializes in Python. And I'm sure there are things that I use it for that are probably, I'm going to find out about some features that I should be using a whole lot better. So I'm going to be handing it over to Corey and take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Let me go ahead and get my slides up here and visible to everyone. Share screen.
I should ask right now too, do you have a preference on questions? Hold off to the end or just as people get them or anything like that?
As they, yeah, come to you, that is totally okay.
Cool.
I did have a slide for questions and answers if we get to that point, but yeah, as I'm going through the application, absolutely feel free to stop me. Either unmute yourself or go into the chat. In fact, let me go ahead and uh, get the chat open just in case people want to ask questions through there. But yeah, thank you so much. I want to say thank you, David, for um, letting me give this demo, and thank you, Yamil, also for keeping in contact and keeping the group going. I know that yeah, we've all had things going on with the holidays and whatnot, but it's been a really cool experience to be part of this group, even just starting to learn more about Python and how everybody's using it. But a little bit about me. Yeah, my name is Corey Schmidt, IT specialist at the Smithsonian. A little bit of my background. I first learned Python in graduate school, where I took a couple of courses. And when I was first learning Python, I was using just a standard text editor. But then one of my friends introduced me to PyCharm, and I've been using it ever since. So I've been using it for almost 8 years now. So I've seen it from, earlier versions where, it had some functionality but not others, and then up until this point where, yeah, everything is it's a really robust and built out IDE. So been using it for a while. And in my professional capacity, I was using it to uh, write scripts to clean up metadata. So a lot of my professional experience is with archive space and being involved in that community. And as part of that, I was helping migrate first at the University of Georgia to migrate them from Archivist Toolkit to archive space. And I wrote a lot of Python scripts to manage metadata, update things via the archive space API. I even at one point wrote my own GUI application in Python using a Python package to so that users at the University of Georgia could just interact with a user interface to help manage our internal processes. But I started at the Smithsonian in 2024, and I've been continuing to use Python for managing metadata and writing scripts and thinking about how to use Python to help better our internal processes, specifically as it relates to archives and archival management, that kind of thing. But all that being said, PyCharm is really cool. It's really powerful. I have no idea how every single feature works. So if you see something on the screen where you're like, that looks interesting, tell me more about that. I may say, I know absolutely nothing about that. So I hope you give me that bit of grace because even though I have been using it for a while, there is so much to the application that even I, you know, don't have enough experience or time using it. But all that being said, if you do see something, please do point it out. I'm more than happy to show it off or give whatever information I have about a feature or anything like that. Um, so yeah, and I'll make sure for this demo, general objectives, give a little introduction about what is PyCharm, how to download it, set it up. Also give a brief layout overview so that if you open PyCharm for the very first time and you have no idea what you're looking at, like I like I did 8 years ago, and I was like, this is too much, this is overwhelming. Hopefully give you a bit of an overview so that you're not as a deer caught in the headlights. And I hope also to give a little bit of a coding example, just to write like a simple function, just to give you all a little bit of a taste of what it's like coding in PyCharm, and then also giving my suggestions for any sort of advanced tools and plugins. So. With all of that, what is PyCharm? It's an IDE. IDE is an integrated developer environment. I like to think of it as a really souped up text editor. So whereas a text editor, if you're first starting to learn how to code, it can be great for understanding the basics, really getting an understanding of, whatever programming language you're working in, what are what are the basic, what's the basic structure, syntax, that kind of thing. But an integrated developer environment takes that text editor and builds on it to the nth degree. It allows for uh, things like code completion, style assistance, depending on what kind of programming language you're writing in, and advanced features like debugging tools so that as you write out your scripts, as you write out files and files start interacting with each other and start importing different things, um, you can use advanced tools like debugger to isolate if you're having an issue with your scripts or something like that. It gives you a point where you can say, this is where it's breaking down, and I can dig into that further. So basically, it's just a way for you to um, write code more efficiently, to uh, debug code, and it just offers a lot more functionality than a basic text editor. And the difference with what I was using before, which I think was Atom, I don't know actually what I was using, but the text editor I was using before and then switching to PyCharm, the biggest difference was obviously that PyCharm is built for writing code in Python, which means when you download it, when you install it, it comes with style assistance using the PEP 8 standard. It gives code hints. It has syntax highlighting. So as write out print statements, declare functions, classes, um, you know, make other sorts of declarations, it'll highlight that text in different colors so that it's very easy to see this is what this is doing, this is what I'm doing here. Um, in addition to so many other features that are really fantastic about coding in Python. So um, it's in addition to all of that, at standard out of the box, like you're ready to go with Python and writing really efficient, good looking code. It has the ability to add a bunch of plugins as well, so you can expand your functionality even more. I'll highlight some of the plugins that I use in my PyCharm local instance. But there are so many to choose from, and it can be overwhelming, but it's also a wonderful area where you might say, "Man, I really wish it did this," or "I really wish there was a linter or something to help me write a different kind of code, but in a certain style." There's plugins for that. And it's one of the great advantages of PyCharm is having that ability to tack stuff on. Um, so that's a little bit of an overview of PyCharm. Hopefully I did it justice. So next up, I wanted to get started. If you've never used PyCharm, if you've used it before, this can, be helpful. How to download and set it up. point to this other versions page. So I'm going to click on this and hopefully browser comes up. Nope, browser came up on the other menu. Let me open up here. There we go. Okay. So I'm pointing to how to download PyCharm uh, from their web page version log. The most recent version is 2025.3. The first caveat I'll say, if you know anything about PyCharm or uh, maybe tangentially, historically, PyCharm has uh, come in two different versions, a community version and a professional version. The difference being the community version was free to use, and the professional version obviously was a paid version. Back in version 2025.1, though, they stopped shipping two different downloads, and now you have one download for PyCharm. So, you don't have to. It PyCharm made it very difficult sometimes when it was the two downloads trying to download just the community version. So now, if you want to install it, fresh and clean, you just have the one download. And if you want to make sure that what you download is the free version, because they still have that tiered version where you have the professional, if you want to upgrade, you'll just want to make sure that when you're installing it, you want to unselect the trial button. There's a trial button that says you have a free 30-day trial professional version. You'll just want to make sure to uncheck that, and that should uh, put you into that community version where you can still use it for free and don't have to, expect an unexpected billing charge. Um, I've sort of been grandfathered into that. So because I've been using PyCharm for so long, even before 2025 version came out, I don't think I necessarily had to use I set that up particularly. So if you're following along and you download it and you're getting some weird options or something doesn't quite make sense, feel free to stop me in the middle of this and I'm happy to help troubleshoot if you need that help. But some other things that I want to mention, uh, obviously, it comes in different flavors of OS. So you've got your Windows, your Linux, or your Mac OS. And it also, let me see here. Once you've downloaded whatever flavor of operating system you have, you can go to, let me pull the slides back up so I can get the other link here, the installation documentation that PyCharm is going to do it. Okay, there we go. The installation documentation that they have available. And this is my introduction to PyCharm has amazing documentation. Um, it's really quite thorough. I've used it a lot, especially when I was first starting out. And the great thing about their documentation, and I think this is new, but if you look in the top left hand of the screen, you can see that they have different documentation depending on the version that you're looking at. So if you don't if you want to go back to a previous version of PyCharm because you don't like the modern UI layout, you can go to a previous version where it's old school layout, and then you can go to this documentation and see, okay, this is what the documentation said about these features and what I should expect. In addition, over on the right-hand corner of the screen, it changes the shortcut key bindings depending on what OS you're using. So it defaults to Windows, but you can do Mac OS and other options as well. So along with it just being in dark mode, which is honestly very appreciated for us developers. So really great documentation. I'll make sure to provide all of you a link to this documentation so you can read through it and yeah, whenever you're yeah going through and using PyCharm for the first time, this is really handy to have up on a separate screen. So anyways, this is the install PyCharm documentation. So it gives general recommendations about what kind of system you need in order to make sure that it runs okay, as well as giving some insight into what options and stuff you can choose from. whenever you're setting it up. I will mention that, it'll do things like anytime you try to open a .py file, it will say it's the default application for opening that kind of file. So it's going to try and do that. As well as this option here, I did enable it. It's open folder as a project. So if you have a folder uh, on your computer and you know that, it's full of code that you want to edit in PyCharm, it just gives you that context menu. So, and there are a few other options that I won't get into. I distinctly remember when I was first installing it, it gave multiple screens of, 10 or 12 checkboxes of options. I think it's streamlined most of those. So depending on which version you download, you may get a lot of options to configure it on initial setup, or if you're using a more recent version, it might be less. So just keep that in mind in case you're doing that. So with all that being said, hopefully that gives you a little bit of guidance of where do I go to download it and how do I install it. So with that being said, I think the next slide that I have is actually, yeah, looking at PyCharm itself. So let me go ahead and try and open it. So I have not the latest, but the second latest, 2025.2. Let me make sure that this is, go ahead and open up here. It takes a little while to get started. That's full screen. There we go. Can people see PyCharm okay? Does it look all right?
I
It's a
can see
bit
it.
small.
The text is maybe a little small, but overall, yeah.
Text is small. Yes. I can change that. So I'll say when you first open up PyCharm, if you already have a project that you were working on and you close out of it, it'll open to the last project. So I was working on uh, script for our own Smithsonian Institution. All of this code is publicly available, so I'm not showing any secrets or anything like that. But when you first install it, let me go ahead and close this project because that will open up this screen here. So this will be what you first see when you install PyCharm. Essentially, it's going to be this center area here are a list of your recent projects. So PyCharm says, if you're working on a folder with a bunch of scripts and, configuration options, it calls that a project. If you don't have any, if this is the first time you're using it, this is going to be pretty blank. It's not going to show any projects. But you can start to create a project if you click on either the new script or new project buttons up here. The difference is new script, if you don't want to bother with um, setting up like a folder directory and other settings, you just say, I want a runoff script. I just want something quick and easy. You click on that and it creates a Python file for you and it gets you started right away versus, yeah, the new project where you basically open up a blank canvas where I can start writing Python files, other files, set up my folder structure, that kind of thing. And then let me go ahead and because I know you said the text was a little small. So let me see. In this customize option, I've got different things like the IDE font. I'm gonna boost that to 20. Hopefully that's much larger so that people can see it okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. But yeah, as you can see here, you can change, things like the theme, color scheme, language and region. So very built out and all that kind of stuff. Plugins, I'll briefly touch on plugins, but essentially, like I said before, PyCharm has a lot of plugins where you can install additional features, where, you might be looking at more. You might be looking for more functionality when it comes to different linters or, it's got environment variables. You can see here, there's some popular ones that are listed here on the plugin marketplace, like CSV editor, um, .env files, that kind of thing. Some of these plugins are generated by community users. Others are created by JetBrains, and JetBrains is the parent company that owns PyCharm. But if I go to the installed tab over here, you can see that I've got a few plugins installed: env file, rough, secrets masker, and YAML lint, as well as some default plugins that are installed just as you initially install it. So at any point, I could decide to deactivate any of these plugins. Um, but yeah, it's an option in case you need or want some additional functionality. The other thing that I'll quickly point out on this initial screen is this learn section here. Uh, this will give you essentially in the PyCharm interface, you can start learning how to use it, and boy howdy, is it useful. I was like, I'll click on this right now just to give you all a little bit of a preview of what that looks like. Um, it's got, your onboarding tour, editor basics, code completion, refactorings, all of this very useful stuff where even though I've been using it for 8 years, I was starting to do these. I was like, oh, that's a feature I didn't know it had. So it's really, really convenient. And honestly, besides this demo that you're watching, this is the next best resource available to you. If you just want to learn how to use PyCharm, open that Start Learning button, and it opens up a new project where you can learn about all the different features that PyCharm comes with. So it's super useful. Highly recommend if you're still interested, or even if you've been using PyCharm for a while, check out this Start Learning thing because even then you'll learn something new. Yeah, and I'm gonna go back. Let me go back. There we go. Okay. So, from here, now that we've kind of looked at this beginning part of PyCharm, I'm going to click on an existing project, which you all got a preview of. And so I've changed the IDE text, so it is very large, much larger than I'm used to. Um, but the code itself is very small, and every
Corey, can I
time
give you a suggestion?
yes,
Why don't you shut the tab on the right, Utilities Test PI, and make the your window a little bit shorter, not as tall. That might make the text a little bit larger and the UI a little bit larger for those on some. Maybe not. We
gotcha.
may
I
not
think
need that.
Control plus is the shortcut for making the code text bigger.
Let me try that. Um, you said Control plus, you said.
Yeah.
It is
Um,
not.
on PyCharm, I've used hold on the Shift key and the scroll wheel on my mouse.
mm,
Or maybe
nope.
it was the Control key, but I definitely I'll have to bring it up on my own. But I'm
Yeah,
on a
I
Mac.
apologize. I wish I was a little bit more prepared to make this code a little bigger. My apologies, but yeah, uh, if yeah, when we can figure out that shortcut, I'll go ahead and start talking about the layout, and then if you all discover what is the magic thing to make the code bigger, just interject real quick. But yeah,
Are you
so
are you on a
oh yeah,
laptop by any chance?
I'm on a laptop on a Windows machine.
Because on my at least on a Mac, if I don't have a mouse wheel right now, but if I zoom in with my trackpad, the unpinching move, at least on a Mac, that makes the text larger on a Mac on my older version of PyCharm. It's like opening your fingers wide.
Right, yeah. No, it's
Okay.
not yeah. So I might be able to find out uh through some other uh it's got a help find action. let's see if I can make this here. So this is actually one of the features that I was going to talk about was if you want to find a specific action, this is one way that you can do that. If I look up increase font size, let's see if, oh, okay, there we go. Well, it increased it once. Let's actually change this, edit this here. Okay, I disabled it. Yeah, change font size with control mouse, wheel in. So let's go ahead and enable that feature, apply. Now if I do that, there we go. Okay. Thank you for the group effort there. So, but yeah, it helps show off. Yeah, one of the great things that I use all of the time in PyCharm is if you go to the top left-hand corner of the screen, these little bars, you click on that, and that gives you your menu options. If you're using a previous version of PyCharm where they didn't redo the entire user interface and make a lot of people very mad, these menu options are available just they're just there. They're present. You don't have to click into that. But yeah, so if I go over to the very right and I click on Find Action, I use this all the time for looking up all of the different settings, including font size and other things. So I'll show you another feature that I like to use as part of that. But essentially, yeah, on the top right, you have your basic, menu options, everything from file to, I clicked on that close project, for instance, to get me to that first screen that we were looking at for a little while, as well as looking at recent projects, your open, and you can access your settings, all that kind of stuff. Um, and we have, yeah, a bunch of options in edit, view, navigate, code, and you might see why I may have limited understanding of some functionality of PyCharm because there are so many options to choose from. Um, and I will touch on a couple of them that have been most useful to me, but if at any point you see something that looks interesting, let me know and we can explore it together. But that's where you'll find all of that information. Here, this is pointing to the project that we are currently in, which is our CAS A-Space scripts. So this is all of the scripts that we use here at the Smithsonian for dealing with archive space. And if I click down on that, it's just going to show me a list of projects that I've downloaded locally or I have locally on my computer so I can switch to a new project. And then to the right of that is this 144 task remove. This is the branch. So one unique feature, well, it's not really unique to IDEs or anything like that, but one thing that is really handy about PyCharm is that it is integrated with a version control system. The default is Git, but you can change it to another version control system whenever you're setting up your project. In this case, I'm pointing to a public GitHub repository where all of our archive space scripts live. So all of you can see the same code that you see here on the screen. And because I've connected PyCharm with that GitHub repository, it enables me to do function get functions within PyCharm itself. So things like making commits or doing pushes, updating the project. If, for instance, if I scroll down here, I look at my local branches. I've got this 144 task remove argparse branch that is also on here on the remote is in the remote branch, as well as a few other branches for issues that we are working on for our scripts. So if at any point I want to take this remote branch and I want to add it locally so I can start developing that locally, all I need to do is click on one of these branches and I could click check out. It's going to download that local branch. If there were any, any information that comes with that, I could start working on it. In addition, let's say, for instance, I update the project and there's been an update to the main remote. I can then click on this, my own main, and then I could say, I update main, I pull that code, and then I could say merge main into the branch that I'm currently in so that I'm making sure that all of the most recent changes from main are available in my branch. So essentially it's just instead of working in the terminal and doing a bunch of git commands or version control commands, it just has it here and as settings that I can just push the button. I don't have to worry about you know any wacky settings unless wacky settings have, I've screwed with them to the point that they're wacky. But I can do a bunch of different things, including renaming, deleting, updating, all that kind of good stuff. So again, if I don't have to manage this stuff through the GitHub web app or the desktop app, I can just do all of that here in PyCharm, which is really handy. Speaking of doing things in PyCharm, I talked about different integrations. One of the things that I could do is I could also submit a pull request from PyCharm. This is a little bit more recent of a feature. When I first started using PyCharm, this was not available, but more recently it is. I believe, and people might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe in order to set up this pull requests option, you need to have your GitHub or your GitLab account connected to PyCharm. So I've logged in and I'm using a token, I believe, to to in PyCharm to say, hey, this is my GitHub account. Um, you know, you have access to make commits, submit a pull request, all that kind of stuff. So this is really handy because this PR tab essentially, if you have anything like pull request templates, it's going to display those templates. So if let's say I try to create a pull request, you'll notice here on the bottom, it actually shows the template for our pull requests, right? It's saying, give me a description of this pull request, what's the related GitHub issue. All of that has already been defined in our repository, and it's all here. And I can even do things like assign reviewers, add a label to it, and yeah, again, just another way for you to avoid having to use GitHub web app or desktop, which can be handy in some cases. And then yeah, I can create my pull request. I can also create a draft pull request. So it's most, if not all, of the functionality that you're used to seeing from GitHub web app. With that being said, it typically opens up into your project folder. This is where I was talking about. You can have a bunch of folders, and your file structure is outlined here. We've got a lot of Python files, as well as test files, and we even have some SQL scripts mixed in there. You can open other scripts from other languages. The difference being that, if you have something here, you might not have the same linting capabilities or syntax highlighting that you would for, a dedicated developer environment for whatever language that's in. But at the very least, you can see it, and you can even make code changes and commits and all that kind of stuff. So pretty useful stuff. And then if I let me make this a little bigger. So over on the bottom here, we have things like our Python console, and we can look at things like our Python packages. I mentioned very briefly that you can set up a virtual environment whenever you start a project. A virtual environment. I'm using a virtual environment for this particular project because that's what I learned how to use. But I understand that UV is a very popular option nowadays. A lot of people are switching from virtual environment to UV. UV is supported in PyCharm, and if I wanted to, set up something like that, what I could do is if I go on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, it's telling me what Python version I'm using in the virtual environment that is a part of this project. If I click on that, and then I can click on Add New Interpreter, uh, add local interpreter, I could start that process where I add a new Python interpreter. I can choose that type, which, it defaults to virtual environment, but I could use UV, Poetry, pipenv, Conda, Hatch, right? A lot of different options. And then it sets some basic settings for me if I wanted to, giving me a folder structure, as well as the base Python version. You can create virtual environments too. Ah, neat. Like I said, I gotta look into it. It looks really cool, and people say it's like very performant and very useful. So um,
Corey, can I say two things real quick?
yeah.
I want to offer myself to give you a quick presentation I gave on UV just for you. I made a
Hmm.
very short presentation in this group. I don't think it was recorded, but it should only take me like 15 minutes to go over it with you. I'd love to give that back to you as you're sharing this with me because I've never seen this new version of the UI of PyCharm. But a feature that I liked with PyCharm when I set up a virtual environment, I remember I was writing some code and I said, "Oh, I want to use pandas." So I did import pandas, and PyCharm's like, "Hey, Emil, you don't have pandas installed in virtual environment. Would you like me to do that for you?" So I thought those some of the nice things you get automatic from PyCharm. And it was just one quick button I can press, and it took care of adding PyCharm to my virtual environment automatically.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I would be very happy to take you up on that offer to learn more about UV. And yeah, it's one of the most useful things that I've found. I opened this Python packages. All of these packages, if I go to interpreter settings here, you can see that whenever yeah, set up my virtual environment, I've got all of these packages. These packages were installed from my requirements.txt file because PyCharm identified there's a requirements.txt file. It said, hey, would you like me to install all of these required packages? I said yes, and then it automatically installs all of them. And I can always go here to see, is there a new version that I should upgrade to? For instance, if I'm looking at this MySQL connector, it's been upgraded from 9.5 to 9.6. From here, I can click upgrade, and that's going to upgrade it in the virtual environment. And then if it's upgraded, if you have a upgraded version or a different version in your virtual environment, and then you want to sync your requirements.txt file with what's in here, all you need to do is, and I need to do the find action because I can never find where it is. You can click this option, sync Python requirements. Where'd you get? Oops. Yeah, let me try that again. Find action. There we go. This has saved me so much time, and this one little tiny little feature is so helpful. Essentially takes all of those packages that are in my virtual environment, syncs them to what is displayed in my requirements.txt file, and it even gives me the option to, specify different versions, strong equality, greater equal, compatible version. I didn't even know these were things that existed for your requirements.txt file until I found this on PyCharm. Um, so uh, I can do that, and if I were to click OK, and there was a difference, it would essentially go to that. Where's my? Oh, yeah, it's actually right here. It would go to this requirements.txt file, and it would just update all of these numbers for me. Just a little automation that's very helpful. All
Corey,
right. Yes.
have you demonstrated yet? I might have lost track because I was taking notes. Uh, it's a command called what's it, find usage?
Find usage.
Usages.
Yes.
Like if you select a variable in one of your code or a function and you right click, it'll go to the definition. Um,
Yes. Believe. Yeah, find usages. Alt F7.
and that's
Is that
been
what you're referring?
yeah, Alt F7 is great because it'll if you click on that, it'll show where in the whole project was that variable defined or where was it called. And I use that all the time as I go through my own limited code base, or if I'm contributing to another group or some other pre-existing code that I can see every time they call that, in that case, that class method in that file or in the whole project. That's a feature I use all the damn time. And when there's something I know you already spoken about, Corey, is like The refactoring feature of renaming a variable, you get an interface like this. Okay, you want to rename this variable. Here's all the places it appears. Are you sure you want to do it? So you can get a heads up of where it will be changed all over your code if you change some particular variable or function name.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, again, I use the same thing. Yeah, either find usage or refactoring. Both of those are super duper helpful, especially as I'm like, I create a variable name, uh, test 123 because I don't know what to call it yet. And then I write my code. I'm like, oh, this is very dependent on test 123. Let me rename it to something that's a bit more meaningful. So yeah, very useful features.
If I can say one
Um,
other feature is
yeah,
if I'm in a function being used in a file, and if I on the Mac, I think I click on it inside of the function name and hit down arrow and the command key on the Mac, it immediately jumps to the definition. So I can see what the heck this actual function does. So it might be control down arrow, or they could have changed that.
yeah. I will link a list of keyboard shortcuts. Um, there's a PDF. So if you want
Excellent.
to learn more about, yeah, keyboard shortcuts, there are a lot of them. And just like there's a world championship for Excel or some the Excel World Cup. I think there
Yeah.
should be a PyCharm World Cup because there are so many keyboard shortcuts. Um, it's really cool just having knowledge of all those features and getting to them really quickly. Um, also, another thing you reminded me of is let me see. What's a good example? I wanted to also point out a quick tip. So right here, for instance, I have this record error function. This is a function that I've defined myself. It gives some type hints about what arguments are available. You see this message. This is not actual code. This is just PyCharm trying to be helpful. Um, I have used the keyboard shortcut Control P, which gives you a little tooltip pop up and says, hey, these are the different arguments that this function either requires or optionally requires. And if it declares a type, it'll say that. So it's saying message is needs to be a string. And if I were to go to uh, the second one, so this is my message, this whole part. I use my comma, I do Control P again. It's going to say status input. Status input does not have a declaration about what type it requires, so it doesn't say that there. But I've used Control P a lot because if I'm importing a package and I'm not sure what arguments to use, I just use that as a shorthand to say, what are the different arguments this function takes, and do any of these seem useful or helpful? So again, another keyboard shortcut. But with that being said, I'm running a little short on time, a little behind where I was hoping to be at this point. So I'm going to quickly, let me see. I'm going to quickly point out a couple of the features that I think might be useful to this group. What I use a ton is up here on the top right of the screen. You have this play button and this little bug button. The play button allows you to run the script that you are currently in, just within PyCharm. You don't have to necessarily, run it through a terminal, although PyCharm does have a terminal. If you look on the bottom left-hand screen, it comes with an integrated terminal. And useful thing about the terminal is it defaults to the virtual environment that you've already set up, so you don't have to go there. But in the case where I don't even want to mess with terminal, I can just click this play and it's going to try and run the script. If I have something like, a main declaration and it says, run main function, I can just click that and it'll run. And if I want to configure how it runs, let's say I've got a file input that I want to make sure is part of my script parameter. What I can do is I can't actually run utilities.py, but if I right click it and I go to this modify run configuration, that's going to open up a pop-up where I can modify how this script runs within PyCharm, including right here, script parameters. So a lot of the times, a lot of the things that I'm doing recently at the Smithsonian is we get a CSV input of a bunch of archival data that we need to update. And so I input the file path for the CSV as well as a file path for a JSON lines file to store the data as a backup. I put that as my parameters. And then what I'll also do is I talked a little bit about I actually don't think I've talked about it yet. ENV file. This is something that my coworkers at the Smithsonian they put me on to using this. It's a way to manage environment variables and environment setup. So in our case, at the Smithsonian, we have three instances of archive space. We have a dev instance, a test instance, and a production. Production is where all of our, archivists and everybody inputs most the data. Test and dev are for, a playground. And those are really useful because I can use those playgrounds, for instance. It's a little small because the text is so big. So, but if I enable env file, I can add my env files and those variables to point to a space dev or a space test or a space production. And I can say, hey, when you run this script, run it against test instead of running against dev, right? I just need to basically check whatever environment I want to run it against. And within our scripts, we default to dev unless it's declared. In this case, I'm actively declaring, hey, run this against dev or test or production. So whenever I go to run the code, it says, yep, it's going to run against the credentials that you have in that .env file, whether it's production, test, or dev. I click apply, okay, and then I run the script right there. So really handy. That gets into a little bit more of the advanced features that I was hoping to talk about. So hopefully that also gives you all some ideas about how to use it. Additionally useful, if you don't know about this, PyCharm comes with a debugger. This has saved me so much freaking time because I was very used to when I was first learning how to code, I would try to run my script, it would break, and so I would try to, do print statements, trying to figure out, okay, what are the variables saying at this point? What are the variables saying at this point? But with PyCharm, you have a debugger where if, for instance, let me open up one of our unit tests. Yeah, our utilities.py, our utilities tests, and zoom in so y'all can see that. So let's say, for instance, I've got a bunch of unit tests here. If I want to run, let me get one that hopefully will work. Let's say I want to run this unit test, get repo info. Now, what I could do is I could just try and run it. So I have this little, arrow button. I could just run this individual test and it will, run just like normal. Or I can hover over the lines here, the line numbers, and where there's actual code written, so not doc strings like here, but where there's actual code, I can click on that and it's going to highlight them in red so that when I click this debugger or when I click right click this play button and click debug, it's going to attempt to run this unit test and then it's going to stop at that line that I've highlighted and say, hey, I've stopped. This is what I've got so far. Right now, I've got a self-test archive space class. That's the info I have. If I want to move on to the next line, I click this green line plus arrow combination that goes to the next line, and then it shows me this is what's in the repos info variable. This is all the information that is in there. So I can actively look at what's happening at what point. If, for instance, it hits an error outside, or if it hits an error where it's a syntax error or something like that, it's going to stop at that error. It's going to say, hey, this is where I found it, whether it's inside your own code or critically, if it's part of an imported package, it'll say, hey, we got this error from some sort of package, and it'll open up that Python file or whatever file it's trying to pull that from and highlight the line where it breaks and says, this is where it broke there. So again, super useful if I'm trying to figure out where in the heck this is breaking. Is it my code? Is it something I've imported? using this debugger has saved me so much time. And I would you could spend another 30 minutes talking about this debugger because there are so many different features and how to use it. So super useful. And if I want to stop it, I just click the red box there, and that takes me out of there. So, and I just want to unselect that. But yeah, debugger super useful. I know I don't have too much time left, so I didn't actually write any code. Sorry about that. But when you write code, it's really nice. You can. I was gonna attempt to essentially mimic. Let me scroll down here. Sorry for the scrolling. This function here, this write to file, this function, because we're in an IDE, it auto completes things. So if I were to try and create a new function, for instance, if I'm trying to make a new one, I'm going to say def, uh, something. That's not how you spell something, but right, it's got the parentheses, and I could declare my argument one, um, and so it's got different code completions, right? So it's auto indenting everything. It's highlighting that, hey, I see that you're creating a new function here. You've got your argument for your function. If I start to write out a doc string to explain what that is, I do a triple quote. I can click enter. It didn't do it this time. Sometimes it'll give me like the args declaration here. Um, so I can start typing in my doc string and start identifying types and all that kind of stuff. And then as I write out my script, right, it'll help try to complete the code. And yeah, when you talk about keyboard shortcuts, there's a ton of keyboard shortcuts just for this part. One of which that I use a lot is control forward slash, which puts everything into a comment. So if I just want to comment out a bunch of code, I do control forward slash. And then if I want to uncomment it, I highlight the section that I want to uncomment, and I do that same exact thing. It uncomments it. So little nice to haves. And I know we're only scratching the surface, and I only have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to leave it there. But there are so many other things that you can use PyCharm for. Um, so let me go ahead really quickly back here. I just want to briefly get this. So I've got, yeah, different advanced tools. We talked about a little bit about all this kind of stuff. I've got some links to plugins that I use. One that you might have seen where it looked like there was blank parts of the screen. It's because I was using Secrets Master. So I was like, oh, I probably should have that if I'm giving a presentation. Don't want to accidentally show off anything. So that's useful. Questions, answers. Yeah, here's my additional resources. So I've got a link to the shortcuts. So I'll make sure to link to that in chat. And how to turn off data sharing. I think it's pretty useful, especially for a lot of us here. To disable that setting, as well as, yeah, learn PyCharm, getting started, all that kind of stuff. Woo! All right, I'm gonna take a deep breath. Thank you all so much. Do folks have questions or anything like that?
Thank you, Corey. Good to know about the secrets masker. I know I learned a few other features, but I mean, even that one I'm going to be looking into. I know there have been a few times where I've presented and I've gone like, oh right, I need to get these keys out of here into a separate area. So I'm going to be taking a look at that as well. Cool. Oh, there was a question by Mike. Does anyone know if the fancy autocomplete is a premium feature? Mike is on the free version, but I'm not sure if it's just like a teaser in order to get people to pay for the premium version.
Yeah. To my understanding, it is free. So I've been using, yeah, the free version, and the autocomplete um, should be there whenever if you have a trial or something like that.
Hmm. Cool. There's some really excellent suggestions and a lot of general chat as well. So I would recommend looking over that at some point, both for Corey and for anyone who might be viewing this down the line as well. Um, and it looks like David mentioned there's a you can do themes in PyCharm as well. Hyper-B, I
Mhm.
guess, is a good one. Oh, thank you
Yes.
for the links of keyboard shortcuts. Oh yeah, I think yeah, I've never looked into this myself, but I think PyCharm offers like a an education like discount.
I looked into it, but last time I checked it in the last 2 years, it was meant for students and faculty. And I don't teach. I may give some training lessons here and there, but since I'm not faculty or a student, I dropped it. They may not check that closely, or they could have changed their rules. But that's what my boss said. Just do the education. I went back and look. I read it. It shouldn't apply to me.
So, this is Paul. I mean, I am faculty, I guess, because I'm a librarian. But so, if you get the EDU discount, I think all you need is an EDU email, I believe. So, but you get everything in JetBrains for free if you get, you just submit the form. I mean, I think approval is like instantaneous or maybe like a couple of minutes, and then they send you a license code. You do, I think, have to renew the license code um, maybe annually, but they just send you an email to your EDU domain, and if you click the link, it just re-ups your license. And like I said, that works with all the JetBrains, data grip and PyCharm and everything.
Very cool. All right. Any other questions or comments before we wrap up? Yeah, looks like a mix in the chat of as well of people who've done the .edu thing, and I think I'm just using the free version right now as well. So it's been feature rich enough for me for what I do. So either way, but there might be a good amount of people who can get a lot out of that .edu approach. So. Well, awesome. I just want to say thank you again, Corey, for this presentation. Again, I learned a lot, and really, really fantastic to kind of dive into some of these features that I've just kind of glanced over throughout the years. So fantastic. So thank you so much. And we'll stop the recording there.